This blew my mind. I'm not entirely surprised, but wow. Check this out from Eureka Alert. This is a press release from the National Institute of Mental Health. Release of 13 reasons why associated with an increase in youth suicide rates. 28.9% increase. Correlation is not causation. But the reason this is crazy, and I want to highlight this story and talk about this press release. Long story short, Netflix released this show, which is 13 Reasons Why, and I didn't watch it, but my understanding is the show is about a young woman kills herself, and then she leaves clues explaining the 13 Reasons Why or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll read it. And in that month, there was a dramatic increase in suicide. When I was little, there was a song called Adam's Song by Blink-182, which you're probably familiar with. I don't know the full lore about it, but apparently it was about a dude who took his own life, and it had something to do with Blink-182's song. But the story I heard afterwards was that the song was really depressing to people, and it resulted in more people hurting themselves. I don't know if that's true. It's just like the urban legend we were told. But this is kind of, I don't want to say definitive evidence, but it provides evidence in that direction. The reason this story is important is it shows how young people are easily influenced by pop culture. Think about other things that are trends today. Think about things that young people are doing and they're claiming is becoming more prevalent. And perhaps it's because the media is pushing it. They're highlighting these things. Let's read. The Netflix show 13 Reasons Why was associated with a 28.9% increase in self-harm rates among U.S. youth ages 10 to 17 in the month of April 2017 following the show's release. This is from, they published a story yesterday. After accounting for ongoing trends in suicide rates, according to a study published today in Journal of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. The findings highlight the necessity of using best practices when portraying suicide in popular entertainment and in the media. The study was conducted by researchers at several universities, hospitals, and the National Institute of Mental Health. Part of the National Institutes of Health, NIMH, also funded the study. The number of deaths by suicide recorded in April 2017 was greater than the number seen in any single month during the 5-year period examined by the researchers. When researchers analyzed the data by sex, they found the increase in the suicide rate was primarily driven by significant increases in suicide in young males. While suicide rates for females increased at the show's release, the increase was not statistically significant. Here we have a quote. The results of this study should raise awareness that young people are particularly vulnerable to the media. Hey, that's what I was saying. Said the study's author, Lisa Horowitz, PhD, MPH, a clinical scientist in the NIMH Intramural Research Program. All disciplines, including the media, need to take good care to be constructive and thoughtful about topics that intersect with public health crises. 13 Reasons Why is a web-based series that tells the story of a young girl who kills herself and leaves behind a series of 13 tapes detailing the reasons why she chose to end her life. Although the show has received critical acclaim, it has also generated questions regarding how the show's portrayal of suicide affects young people who watch it. The series premiered on Netflix March 31st, 2017. If people can be driven through a TV show to end their own lives, what else are they being driven to based on what is being shown in media? When a small fringe group of activists demand something be highlighted, I'm not surprised we see an increase in certain trends. I'm trying to avoid the overt political connotations of this, but there have been recent scientific studies removed because they were offensive to certain communities. Where one study, there was a few preliminary studies showing that young people were, there was a trend in a certain, I'll just say it. There are reports that gender dysphoria is on the rise due to what they call rapid onset gender dysphoria. I'm not saying it's true or it's not true. I'm just saying if someone can be driven to end their own life from a TV show, then certainly what they're portraying in media is going to have an impact on how people perceive their gender identity. It's going, and I have to say, I think it's much more difficult to encourage someone to end their own life than it would be to just take a hormone pill or something. So that's why I found this interesting. Correlation is not causation. So, maybe there are other factors here, but it sounds like they were trying to control for it. This is not some fringe conspiracy website. This is Eureka Alert. This is a press release from the National Institute of Mental Health, right? To better understand the impact of 13 Reasons Why on suicide rates, researchers analyzed annual and monthly data on deaths due to suicide sourced from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's web-based wide-ranging online data for epidemiologic research. These data included information about the deaths of individuals between the ages of 10 and 64 that occurred between January 1st, 2013 and December 31st, 2017, a time span that encompassed the period before and after the release of the series. Yes, obviously. The researchers examined whether the rates of suicide for the period after the release of 13 Reasons Why were greater than would be expected based on suicide counts and trends observed in previous years. The researchers found the rates of suicide for 10 to 17-year-olds was significantly higher in the months of April, June, and December 2017 than were expected based on past data. Excuse me. The increase translated into an additional estimated 195 suicide deaths between April 1st, 2017 and December 31st, 2017. The observed suicide rate for March 2017, the month prior to the release of 13 Reasons Why, was also higher than forecast. The researchers note that the show was highly promoted during the month of March, exposing audiences to the show's premise and content through trailers. The researchers did not find any significant trends in rates in people 18 to 64 years of age. As comparison, the researchers also analyzed deaths due to homicide during the same period to assess whether otherworldly social or environmental events after the release of the show might have influenced suicide rates. I got to point out, when it said otherworldly, my first thought was like, are they trying to imply that paranormal instances? No, they mean like other instances in the world. It's funny though. Homicide rates can be influenced by some of the same social environmental factors as suicide rates. The researchers did not find any significant changes in homicide rates following the release of the show. The lack of change in homicide rates during the period of interest lends some strength to the idea that changes in suicide rates were influenced by the show and not some other environmental or social factor that occurred during the period. But I just got to ask to the National Institute of Mental Health, far be it from me to question the experts, right? I always defer to the experts. But couldn't there be like 1,000,001 things that happened in April that could have affected people other than this TV show? How do they determine the TV show was the one doing it? The findings of the study add to a growing body of information suggesting that youth may be particularly sensitive to the way suicide is portrayed in popular entertainment and in the media. This increasing recognition of entertainment and media influence has led a variety of groups, such as National Action Alliance for Suicide Prevention, the World Health Organization, and Reporting on Suicide.org to create best practices for talking about and portraying suicide on screen. But why not everything else, right? If you go this far, why not everything else? Is it because suicide is like the worst of the worst? We don't want people hurting themselves or each other? What about other issues, and where do you stop? And a serious question, because you could argue the same thing for politics. Children shouldn't be allowed to watch this, they shouldn't be allowed to watch that. You could argue the same thing for LGBT curriculum, which is why we're seeing all the Muslims protesting in Birmingham. If this study is true, and what they're claiming is true, suicide isn't the end-all be-all of the problem. It's the media in general. But what do you choose? So I can certainly recognize why stopping suicide is important. No matter what someone chooses to be or how they choose to live, killing themselves is like one of the worst things you can do. And it's right. So I kind of don't like the idea. I'll put it this way. I think they're approaching it in a fair manner. They're trying to work on guidelines for best practices, and that's probably the right thing to do for everything. Politics, great. Don't ban it. Don't censor it. Allow the people to make what they want. Recognize the impacts. These guidelines recommend, for example, that the entertainment media should avoid depicting the suicide method used. Yes, the entertainment media are also urged to convey the message that help is available and to include accurate information about how people can seek help. There was a story in Chicago where it was when the rise of fentanyl, which is a very, very potent opioid. There was like 2 deaths, and the local news reported it saying 2 people died of a fentanyl overdose in this area. And it was an area kind of where I lived. And then certainly within like the next week, there were like 16 deaths because people found out about it on the news. So it's not just influencing, but creating a show where it shows people how to do it. Well, then people who are looking to do it will do it, right? So while compelling, this research has several limitations. For example, the study used a quasi-experimental design, meaning the researchers cannot make a causal link between the release of the show, and observed changes in suicide rates. Right. The researchers cannot therefore rule out the possibility that unmeasured events or factors influence suicide rates during this period. Right. The second season of 13 Reasons Why was released in May 2018, and a third season is currently in production and is expected to be released sometime this year. The findings from the study should serve as a reminder to be mindful of the possible unintended impacts of the portrayal of suicide, and as a call to the entertainment industry and the media to use best practices when engaging with this topic. This has been me reading you a press release from a governmental organization on a Netflix TV show. Fun. Interesting, though, right? I'll leave it there. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. on this channel. Adios.